So in this video, I'm going to be setting up a Ragnarok private server that's going to be running fully local on your system. And the reason I'm making this is I used to play Ragnarok when I was a kid. And so I thought, why not have it locally on your PC so you can just play it whenever you want? And another reason is there wasn't that very many guides on YouTube on how to set it up on Linux. Most guides are Windows based, or they use like Ubuntu with WSL or setting it up in like a VPS. But I just want it running locally on my system. And so I'm gonna assume you have like a working Linux environment, whatever that means. You basically game on Linux. So I assume you have Wine, you have Lutris. That's where I'm going to be running the game. And Wine is, of course, to run Windows software. And you have your MySQL or MariaDB, whatever database software you're using set up. And for this, I'm going to be using the RAthena server. And there's actually quite a couple of like Ragnarok private servers or like backends, but I found that Athena was getting more frequent updates, so I chose that. And the history of Ragnarok private server is actually quite interesting, and they have like existed for almost as long as the game itself. So I do recommend reading this and start researching up the history of Ragnarok private servers. But so to get like a private server working, you actually need both this and you need a client that works with the server. And I found that setting up the client was a little bit more of a hassle. So I'm gonna start with setting up the client. And another thing is there wasn't that many like guides on YouTube for setting this up. This is the only other guide for Linux that I found. And so you can follow this guide if my guide sucks. Um, I think it's from Lord of Elm, but he also has like a Docker container. So if you're lazy, you can use that. Just kidding. But I'm gonna be downloading individual parts and show how I do it. But I will be using like some of his like dot files for the server because there's no need to reinvent the wheel. But yeah, these are my reference, and I'm gonna be start by building the client. So we're gonna need a couple of things. We're gonna need the latest KRO installer, Korean Ragnarok installer. And I will be linking where I got the files from. And if they don't work, you can always just Google it. You're gonna need open setup. You're gonna need the RSU patcher. We're gonna need the English fan-made translations because we are running a Korean Ragnarok installer. And for this, I'm gonna be using the 2021 client because that just worked for me. But you can, of course, try different, both newer and older. And the server is gonna be a renewal server. But you can, of course, try a pre-renewal and see what works for you. But I did try a pre-renewal with like the 2015 client, and it seemed to work. I didn't find any bugs, but I wanted a renewal client, so I'm gonna be using the 2021 version. And for all of these like websites that I'm linking, you should take them with a grain of salt. Because like for example, this one is an HTTP website, but this is actually from the other like private server. It's called Hercules, or another private server. And you needed a Python 2 interpreter in order to get or to download the client. So just take it with a grain of salt, but it worked for me. And we're gonna need the client patcher. So either one of these work, Nemo or Warp. I'm gonna be using Warp. And we're gonna need a GRF editor. And Giraffe is basically like Gravity's like proprietary like packing system or packing file system. And we're going to be packing the data files from the Chris LL's translation into a Jira. We don't actually need to do it unless you like patch it correctly, which I'm going to be showing. So I'm going to be showing both ways. And yeah, so start with downloading everything above. So once you downloaded everything, we should have all of these files. And it should be around 3.9 gigabytes. I think the installer is 3.4 gigabytes. And because we're going to be using wine and Lutris, we need to export a wine prefix, which I assume you already have set up, wine and Lutris. And I'm going to put them in a directory called games and just name it whatever you want and then wine boot it. So once that's done, we should have our wine prefix. We can cd into it inside drive C. So this is like basically like a Windows working environment inside Linux. And we are gonna bottle it inside Lutris. So we can move our rag utils directory, basically where we move or where we had all of our files that we downloaded in here. And if you're using Linux, I recommend a program called Dear It's gonna make it very simple to just change environments when we cd into it. So once you downloaded that, just make a file called .envrc. Just type wine prefix, whatever wine prefix we made. So and then just do a dir env allow. Basically what it does is every time we cd into a directory, it changes to that wine prefix. Makes it convenient. Right, so after that, we're going to be running the RO installer. And for this, I will be using Lutris. And if you didn't know, this is usually how you would game in Linux. You will have this like bottle software for the wine prefix, or you run it or you play games via Steam, or like Umo Proton via the terminal. But I'll be using Lutris. I just click the plus button, add locally installed game, call it Ragnarok line. I'll be using the wine runner. And the executable would be the installer, which we copied over inside here. Rag utils. And then the wine prefix is, of course, the one that we just made. And then the wine version, I'll be using the wine GE, just the default one. And for the GPU, I think I'll be using my iGPU because it's an older game. And you may have a problem with a newer GPU. I didn't have any problem with my 1070, but just to be safe, I'll be using my older GPU. But you can, of course, test out with your new GPU. It should work. I'll just save it. And let's just run the installer. It looks weird because I don't have like Korean fonts and the game is in Korean, but just click yes on everything. It's gonna install it in our wine prefix. So just click yes. Right, so once that is done, we're gonna copy open setup and RSU patcher to the RO directory. So inside our rag utils, we had our RSU setup and open setup for RSU patcher. Just copy them. And we can actually just move the Ragnarok file. It should look like this, but you can of course have it the way you want. And we are gonna run the RSU patcher. We cd in our Ragnarok directory. And to run this, you of course need wine. So you wine it. And this is gonna take a while. So I think I'm gonna edit this out. Right, so once that is done, we are gonna be doing a wine console command inside the Chris LL's directory. So we go into the Chris LL's translation directory. We go inside tools, and in there we should have client generators.bat. And in order to run that, we do a wine console command. And then just run the client generator.bat. Press any key to continue. We're going to be running a renewal server. And we're going to be choosing the one that is closest to our client in date. So you choose whatever client you have chosen. I had the 2021 client, so I'm going to be choosing 9. And this is just going to copy over files from the Chris LL Git repo to a client directory that is going to work with our client. And we're going to have to merge that inside our client or inside our Ragnarok directory. Right. So, and before we merge it, before we actually merge it, let us let's move it here. So it generated a client directory and move that into our rag utils. So we have it here. And so let's cd into it. Before we do anything, let's edit the data slash s client info.xml. This is where you would put your local IP address if you are going to be running this on local area network or your public IP. But as I said, this is just going to run locally. So I just have my local host IP. And I'm going to be running the client on the same PC as well. So I don't need to change this, but change it if you need. And keep everything the same. But you can change the name of this to whatever you want. This is going to be like the name of the server when you log in. Right, so after that, we are gonna copy this part, copy that part here to here, and then put it in our data.ini. Basically, the client is gonna first read from this grf, which we are gonna pack in our grf editor. So we're basically gonna pack the data directory into a grep, and we're gonna call it the same as the client, just so we don't get confused. But you can of course name it whatever you want. I'm just naming it the same as the client year, and yeah. The thing is, you don't actually need to do this. You could just copy over the files, but you need to patch it. But I'm gonna be doing both, just in case people do it differently. So let's see. So we're gonna merge it into the Ragnarok directory. And how I would do it, because usually it will complain if we patch this, it's gonna complain that some files are missing, even though it's not really missing. It's just that we haven't named it correctly. So um, let's just see. So let's actually just copy yeah, so start with copying everything in the fonts directory. So from the client system, so copy everything inside the fonts directory. Inside the system fonts, right? So just copy everything and overwrite whatever you need to overwrite. So just overwrite everything. Right, so after that, um, so how I'll do this so it doesn't complain, I'm gonna copy everything from from here into here, right? I'll just show you. So copy system en, so all the files in here, just copy it again inside our Ragnarok system and just overwrite everything. Right, so now we have this directory. So now we can just delete the system directory from the client's directory because we don't need it. We just copied everything, and then just now copy everything from the client's directory into the Ragnarok directory. And overwrite everything. Right, that may have been confusing, but just rewatch what I did and read from my cheat file right here. But basically just copy over the files to the Ragnarok directory from the client's directory. Right, so now we're gonna patch the client, the 2021 client. So in order to patch that, we're gonna have to run warp, wine on warp. And if it didn't find your client, just choose it. And it's gonna output it the same name, but with a patch.exe. So just load all the sources. And for this, I'm gonna be using Chris LL's like profile. You just press load session profile and go back to our rag utils inside the Chris directory. Go inside add-ons and then warp session. If you're trying to build like a pre-renewal server, just use the 2015 one. But I'll be using the 2019 profile, so just load it. It's just gonna load like needed patches, right? And you can just select recommended and just name this whatever you want. And if you didn't pack it into a GRF, which we haven't done, I'm gonna do it soon after this. But if you didn't pack it or don't want to pack it as a GRF, you need this um, patch. Read data folder first. So it's gonna read from the data folder instead of the packed GRF folder. So you need this patch. Just click it. And you can choose whatever patch you want as long as it doesn't break your game, but you can test out different patches. Right, so once you're done patching, just press apply patches. We should have our patched client. These files are just for like security purposes, not really needed. We can just delete them. And for the patched client, just rename it whatever you want. But I'm gonna be renaming this as the same as the client, so 2021 1103.exe, but name it whatever you want. Right, so now now we're gonna pack the data folder into a GRF. So the data folder is in client, so it's this one. We're gonna pack it into a GRF. So for that, we're gonna be running wine on the GRF editor. And for this, you just drag and drop it into here from the client directory and then just merge it. And once it's finished, just save it. And we're gonna be naming it whatever we named it in our data.ini, which is the 2021 1103.grf. So it's gonna read this before it reads from the data folder inside the Ragnarok directory. Hopefully everything makes sense. So save it. And once it's finished, so we should have our GRF and we should have our patch client. So we now move both of them into our Ragnarok directory. Right, so that should have done everything. So one last thing is come back to our Lutris. So in this one that we made configure, we change the runner into the client that we just made. So now this is going to be the runner for the game. And hopefully the game runs. If it errors, then we should just fix it. So when it errors like this, it's because it's looking for these files, which should be in system. So let's actually try to fix that. So pet evolution. So let's just change this so it's the same name as that. Pet evolution. Actually, maybe it's this one. No, wait. Maybe it's this one. Pet evolution. Oops. Pet evolution. So just change the true part into suck. Save it. So system private airplane. System. So inside system and then private airplane. Just change the name, the true part into Sakurai. We may need to rerun it again. System monster effect. Let's see. Monster effect size. So it's this one, monster effect underscore suck underscore new lub. Right, so the client seems to be running now. As you can see, rowcraft. So yeah, we should have a working client. So the other half of this guide is going to be to set up the server, which I'm just going to take a break and then continue. So hopefully you're able to follow this guide and see you on the next part.